Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about all the big football news. We're going to be talking the NFL draft. We're going to be talking Cubs baseball. We're going to be talking White Sox baseball and our disappointment as baseball fans in Chicago. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. So you have the Ice Hogs in the playoffs. So make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Oh, Alex, this is a crazy week for Chicago sports, and there's so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, we are just a few days away from one of the most important drafts that this Bears team has had in our lifetimes. And you're getting to the point now where you've been hyping this up for months and months and months. And now that it's finally here, you know, so much of what we've been saying, so much of what we've been anticipating, a lot's changed since then. The way we mocked things just a few days ago even is different now. I mean, things change constantly when we get up to the draft.
Yeah, and I mean, this has been far from an easy draft to mock. I think everybody is pretty unanimous that we know what the number one pick is going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, Bryce Young, it seems like it's going to be a slam dunk. I don't think there's going to be a shocker there. You never know, but I think what's interesting is kind of the discourse we've seen over the past few days. It's going to impact the Bears. Either way, there's going to be things that are going to directly impact the Bears based on where they're drafting, what they might be willing to do. And look, you know, you're in a draft class where you're not looking for a quarterback. Plenty of other teams are looking for a quarterback. And, you know, there's potential with some of these quarterbacks, but there's no Andrew Luck. There's no Trevor Lawrence. There's no Peyton Manning type where they're as close to a slam dunk as you can be without being 100%. Each one of these quarterbacks, you know, they have strengths and they have some questions. And I'm sure you've seen it. This whole CJ Stroud thing and that like test that he pretty much bombed, so to speak.
The S2 cognition test.
Yeah.
You know, we had always, talked about the Wonderlic test that was, oh, hey, they scored low on this. It means they're dumb. They scored high on it. That means they're smart. What this new metric is, it's called the S2 cognition test. And it's one of the newer tools used in the NFL to help teams evaluate potential draft picks. And it's supposed to help determine an athlete's split-second information processing and decision-making ability. I don't really know, how accurate things are, but we did see the scores on it, and Bryce Young was off the charts, and CJ Stroud was off the charts on the wrong end.
Yeah, wasn't it like an 18 or something?
Yeah, and something like Bryce Young was like 100 or something like that.
Yeah, he scored really, really well.
He scored really high on it. Like, or no, is a percentile. I think he was like in the 97th percentile on it, and CJ Stroud was just bad.
And I know that there is a track record of if you don't score good on it, the track record isn't very good.
So I don't know the specifics of that, but I know that it's going to have an impact on how teams view CJ Stroud.
Oh, yeah, sure. And I don't think, again, I could be wrong. My guess right now is the Texans are not going to take him. I mean, I think that if they were number one, they would absolutely take Bryce Young, but I'm not sure the Texans are going to go in that direction or not.
Yeah, the Texans, if they had the number one pick, had Lovey not won that last game, they
Thank
would
you, Lovey.
Thank you, Lovey. Mwah. That's one's for you, Lovey. So they would have absolutely taken Bryce Young. There's no doubt in my mind. And I thought up until maybe a week ago, it was going to be a slam dunk. The Texans were going to take CJ Stroud 1-2, 1-2. And you're right. I'm hearing enough smoke that there's probably a fire. And my thinking is Nick Caserio, the GM for the Texans, like he has to be, that seat of his has to be pretty darn warm, right?
Sure.
I don't know if it's quite hot, but it's got to be pretty warm. And I mean, he's burned through. I mean, are the Texans paying four head coach salaries right now? Because they
lose track.
I mean, because they have a new guy that have a 6-year deal. They're still paying Lovey because he only went 1 year. The previous guy only went 1 year, and then depending on what the guy before that's contract length was, they possibly could be paying 4 head coaches right now.
I mean, they're just trying to find their identity. I mean, they're not only bad, but like, what's their identity? What are you going to do moving forward? Do you say, you know what, we're going to build a team first and then go for a quarterback in another draft? I mean, this isn't going to be a one-off season fix for them. So this is why it gets really interesting here.
Yeah. So he has to be able to sell his ownership on, hey, I'm still the guy for the job. Don't write me off yet. But he has to be able to build on that. And if you draft a quarterback, at least that gives you the you could bring that to your ownership and say, listen, we've got a young quarterback. We're developing him. Here's the plan. Until you have a quarterback, what's your plan in the NFL? I mean, your plan has to be, we're going to be bad next year too, so we can get one of those quarterbacks.
Right, and that's insanely risky.
And here's the thing, is before this year, teams were like, oh man, we're going to have CJ Stroud. We're going to have Bryce Young. It's going to be a good quarterback class. And you tear them down so much going up to the draft that you make guys that weren't on the radar before, cough, Richardson and Levis, suddenly now, those guys could be in play for first overall pick. And guys that you had anointed months ago are suddenly now, well, they're undraftable. They have all these flaws. I mean, that's part of the reason we were able to get Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
If don't tell me that if they could redraft, the Jets would not have taken Justin Fields.
Of course.
So, who's to say that things are going to be better next year, that the Texans are going to be able to get one of those top picks and turn it into a future quarterback? I think it's a dicey situation for the Texans, and especially Nick Caserio, because his future as a GM is on the line here, and I don't think they're going to take a quarterback with number 2 pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be kind of surprised. I wouldn't say surprised if they do, but I'm kind of leaning towards that they won't. Like, if they took a quarterback, I'd be like, oh, they actually took a quarterback. But if they don't, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
I mean, you do have that number 12 pick, and I don't think one of the 4 quarterbacks is going to fall. but I think that's probably their hope, is that they get whoever it is that they want to pick at number 2, and then one of those quarterbacks falls, and they get a guy that they can try to sell the future on. But I don't think they're going to take with number 2.
Yeah, I mean that whole thing is just we got to see them find an identity and find just something. I mean, they don't have an identity. They don't have much of anything right now.
And then you have the Cardinals, and I don't know if anybody's willing to trade up to where they are. I think that was their hope. They have so many holes to fill that I think they're hoping somebody would trade up, and I don't know if anybody is. Maybe the Colts trade up to make sure that they get their guy, because I'm positive they're going to take a quarterback. But
yeah, they are
moving up 4-3. That's a
if Ryan Pace
move.
Was their GM.
So there's so many different directions that this could fall and play out for the Bears at number 9 based on these quarterbacks, because I think a lot of what the Bears are trying to do or hoping to do is based on the fact that there's going to be 4 quarterbacks picked before they get to their pick.
Yeah, I mean, at least 3, I would say. I mean, maybe one falls, but I kind of have trouble seeing that. I mean, really, I look at several teams that are ahead of the Bears, and you think about their quarterback situation, and the Panthers are taking a quarterback. We know that. The Colts are going to take a quarterback, would be stunned if they don't. Texans, we're kind of not so sure anymore. I think our consensus is probably not, but we can't fully rule that out. I don't think the Cardinals, going back to the Cardinals for a sec, you've got a lot tied in with Kyler Murray. So
I don't see him.
Right. So I'd be shocked if they took a quarterback. Seattle, they seem okay with Geno Smith right now after last year. I think, if Pete Carroll keeps working that system, that they can just roll with Geno Smith for the time being.
I think Seattle will take a quarterback, but I think they will take a mid-round pick.
Yes.
One of the second tier quarterbacks where, if it fails, they failed small, no big deal. They can keep going with Geno Smith. But if it's success, then, they're in the same spot that they were in with Russell Wilson many years ago, where they can spend money on the rest of the team and build around a rookie scale quarterback. And I think they'll do that. I don't think they're going to go with that number 5 pick, because they're not a bad team. If you add, especially they have 2 picks, if you hit on both these picks, especially if you're going defense, cornerback, defensive lineman, you could be a pretty decent team next year.
Sure, I agree. I mean, and I think when I say they're not going to take a quarterback, I'm talking about with their first pick. I think them taking a quarterback in the later rounds, like you said, would make a lot of sense, because I don't know what you're going to continue to get from Geno Smith. Geno Smith had a really good year last year, and I was happy for him. I was genuinely happy for Geno Smith. I just don't know what you're going to do moving forward. But re-signing him, I think being in Pete Carroll's offense, his system, his scheme, I think right now you are set up to roll with him next year, no matter what you do.
Right. And that quarterback's contract is structured so after 1 year, you can get out of it. So
right.
If they draft somebody, that person sits a year and they're like, hey, we feel confident with this guy, you can move on from Geno Smith. And even if you don't, it's not a back-breaking contract. I mean, it's nice money for him, but it's not going to break the back of the Seahawks cap situation. Lions at 6, I would be absolutely shocked if they took a quarterback.
I'm seeing more and more mocks putting Jalen Jalen Carter in Detroit.
I still think Jalen Carter doesn't fall past Seattle, but he's definitely, I don't think, falling past Detroit. And so I think he goes either 5 or 6, if not sooner. I think 6 is the highest he goes. I mean, he must feel really confident because he's going to the draft.
Yeah, and I just don't know who is evaluating him from every perspective. I know that sounds weird, but you know how talented he is based on his college career, but the baggage. Do you want to deal with the baggage? Is the baggage going to be a problem? The ceiling for this guy is so high just based on his career. But, is the baggage enough of a red flag? I don't think that it's going to cause him to fall too far. If you're a GM and if you're a president of football operations and you're sitting down in your war room and you're talking this stuff over and you're preparing for weeks and months ahead of a time, looking at everything, looking at the combine, looking at the showing, just every aspect is, where do teams see him now? Who's willing to put up with the baggage that he possibly brings? Who's willing to take that risk? And who's out there saying, you know what, we don't care about the talent. We don't want to risk this. That, I think, is going to be one of the most interesting storylines to follow in this draft.
It's, especially for the Bears, this is the first round pick of this regime. If Jalen Carter is there, for the rest of the time he's here, Ryan Poles is going to be linked to Jalen Carter if the Bears were to pick him at number 9. And people are going to say, hey, that's your first pick. That's who we're judging you on. Do you remember who the first pick overall of Ryan Pace's tenure was?
Kevin White.
It was Kevin White. And that was a disaster right off then and there. And Jalen Carter is a guy that has a lot of bust potential. I think he's very talented from what he can do, but he's also a guy that I worry about his conditioning. I worry about his motor. And if he doesn't put max effort in, he could easily be a bust. I think you have to go with a safe pick if you're Ryan Poles. You have a lot of needs, and I think there are guys that are safer picks. I'm typically I'm willing to be risky in certain situations, but I don't think the Bears are one of those situations where you can be risky at this point. I think you've got to pick somebody safe. You've got to come out of this draft with, I think, 4 starters. I think you have to.
Yeah, and here's the thing, you say the word safe and that makes me cringe because I feel like the Bears have done that way too long, but I think that this is valid in this case because of the situation that they're in. And just going back to Jalen Carter for a second, his ceiling is as high as Mount Everest, but his floor at this point, with everything that's transpired, is as low as the deepest chasm in the ocean. It could really be either or. And like you said, how much can Ryan Poles afford to gamble here? I mean, here's the thing about the Bears. They need a lot, but we know what they need. You need to shore up the offensive line and the defensive line. You know that you would like to build a little more depth in the secondary, and you need more running game. You know what you need. So there is the whole idea of still, hey, draft what's best available, but I don't think that means taking a risk on something like this, because Jalen Carter is more than just a risk on the field due to, say, injury. There's a lot more to this. It's a more complicated situation, and it's one that's worth deep talks and conversations about if you're actually looking to get this guy. So I hear what you're saying. I really do.
And when I say safe, I mean, you take somebody whose floor is a certain level. Is I'm not saying you
right.
have to hit a home run here, but if I'm the Bears, and again, I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but if I'm the Bears, I look at this team and I say, we have a gaping hole at right tackle. There are tackles that are high in this draft. And I'm going to go with
Mhm.
one of them and go say, hey, listen, I feel confident these high, it's other than injury, most of the time, high drafted tackles pan out fairly well. I'm saying, hey, listen, I have this big need. I feel much safer about Paris Johnson or Darnell Wright than I do with Jalen Carter. And I'm going to go with one of these guys because I'm going to plug him in at that right spot or left spot. And my offensive line is going to be a whole lot better. And all of the effort I took into building around Justin Fields is going to be able to operate better, knowing my line is better. And that, for me, it's where I'm going.
Yeah, and I mean that makes all the sense in the world. Unfortunately, there's going to be that other flip of the coin if you go with that idea. And it's your worst fear, right? Imagine if Jalen Carter goes to the Lions, a division rival, and he's great and he destroys you. We all know what the narrative's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's there. And that's part of the reason that I hope he goes to Seattle is if he's a menace in Seattle, we don't play Seattle that often.
Right.
And then it's also a point where, hey, you know what? He was drafted 5th. We drafted 9th. We couldn't have got him anyway. So it's one of those would have, could have, should have, not worried about it. That's kind of my hope. If he goes to Detroit, then he's a constant worry because you're going to play him twice a year.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the Bears are drafting behind those two. So it's not like you'd be skipping and then he'd go to Detroit. It's just kind of that idea of, man, we kind of wrote him off and now look what he's able to do. It's that whole thing.
I think dream scenario is he goes to Houston or Arizona because you're like, that's a garbage team. Even if he is good, they're still a garbage team. And you play him, even if he dominates you, you're going to win that game because they're terrible teams and you don't have to play them very often. And they're a garbage team.
Right.
Win, win, win.
Right. You just don't want Jalen Carter torturing you 2 times a year on a division rival. That's the last thing you want to see happen.
Absolutely. Vegas, I think they're going to go quarterback.
I mean, Jimmy G is going to be their bridge at this point, right?
Yeah. I think they're going to be intrigued because I think either Levis or Richardson is going to fall. And they're going to look at it and be like, I'm going with the high upside here.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, those two, they're going to be projects, right?
Yeah.
Richardson's a project. And they're at that point where you say, I think you can say, we'll take the project, but at the very least, we have an experienced game manager behind center. Not saying Jimmy G's great, but you have a guy.
Absolutely. And I think if you're an NFL team and you're pressed to put either Levis or Richardson in early to start, I feel more confident with Anthony Richardson just because of what the athlete he is. And
he's a freak athlete.
Yeah. And he's going to at least give you some offense with his legs. Levis, I think, is going to really struggle for a couple of years. And if it's not going to be till year 3 or 4 that he figures it out. I mean, if he follows that Josh Allen trajectory, and I don't think he's as good as Josh Allen coming out. But that'll be that type of trajectory where you're going to suffer there's some bad play until he figures it out.
Right, right. And I think that there's something to be said about that because you don't have a group of guys where you can say, in terms of top tier quarterbacks, I mean, Bryce Young, we think he's going to be number one. CJ Stroud, you're starting to ask questions, though there is talent there. Then the next few guys, as mentioned, just being projects, these are big risks that you're taking with drafting these guys. They could pay off greatly, but the fact that there's such projects, again, this is what makes this draft so interesting because, listen, if the number one pick was Trevor Lawrence and the number two pick was Andrew Luck going into 2012, the debate would be, okay, who's going first, who's going second? But the top two teams are going to get one of those two. This is a situation where you have an idea who needs a quarterback, but you ask, who's willing to take on these quarterbacks?
Yeah, there's every quarterback in this draft. And you know what? We could see several of these quarterbacks turn out to be exceptional.
Yeah, they could be great. We don't know.
They've all just got a lot of warts. There's no Trevor Lawrence where you just feel really confident. There's no Andrew Luck where you just feel really confident. There's one guy who, if he was 6'4", 230, you would look at him as one of those Andrew Luck second coming kind of guys in Bryce Young, because you're like, that guy can do everything,
right?
But he's a teeny tiny little man.
He needs to walk on your puking stilts out there.
Yeah, he's got to walk on the stilts to be able to look in the huddle at the offensive lineman.
He's playing at Soldier Field. One of the stilts gets stuck in the turf.
He's got lifts in his shoes.
You see him before the game. He's stuffing like tissues and napkins into his shoes to make him a little taller.
He's got platform spikes. They look like Gene Simmons shoes. And then you've got one guy who's physically gifted, played at a high level, and then suddenly there's concern about his ability to process information, and I think that's going to cause him to drop pretty high or pretty far. You've got a guy who has all these comps of an MVP level quarterback, but he played against nothing competition. And then you've got a guy who's an absolute freak athlete, but had a lot of issues with his accuracy in college. So it's a kind of flavor. What flavor of ice cream are you trying to get? And, how bad do you want ice cream? And so I have a feeling that at least 3 quarterbacks are going to be picked by the time the Bears come. But with the Bears, here's my philosophy, and Ryan Poles may disagree. I don't think we know enough about Ryan Poles drafting to be able to extrapolate anything at this point, because last year he went in with no number one pick and only 6 picks, and he drafted the best available player for his first 2 picks, a project high speed guy with 3, and then traded back after that to get more picks and got a bunch of guys to throw at the wall to see what sticks. And this year he's got a lot more picks. It's going to be interesting to see how he maneuvers. But if I'm the Bears, if their defense sucks, I can deal with that, knowing full well that I'm still going to have a lot of money to spend next offseason, and I'll have more draft picks next season. But I have to fix that offense. I have to make a decision on Justin Fields. We've brought weapons in. I think I have to fix that offensive line. So I'm looking at that right tackle spot and saying, hell or high water, I've got to fix that in this draft with a long-term solution.
Well, and the whole world is looking at him to do so. I mean, this is a situation where Ryan Poles is walking to a draft with a hell lot more to work with than he had last year. As you mentioned, he didn't have a first round pick last year. So this is the first time we're going to have it. Now you're hearing obviously the rumors of them possibly trading back. If there's one thing we do know about Ryan Poles, he's not afraid to trade for draft picks.
No, he's not.
We've seen plenty of that.
Yeah, we have. So I'm fixing that offensive line. That's what I'm doing. Unless I'm absolutely blown away by a defensive player, and for me, that's probably Will Anderson. I'm not drafting a defensive player. There's as much as I may like the player, I'm fixing my offense as much as possible, then worrying about the defense. And my goal is going to be to come out of this with a right tackle, an edge rusher, a defensive tackle, a running back, and a wide receiver. Anything else beyond that, I'm fine with best available player. Those are the 5 positions that I want to come away with.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are crucial. Absolutely crucial. You need to better the trenches. You need somebody to get to the quarterback. And you know what? If you're going to talk about some of those gravy picks, I'd love to see more cornerback depth.
Yeah. Cornerback is deep in this draft. Running back is deep in this draft. Edge rusher is deep in this draft. Defensive line, not so much. Offensive line as a whole is deep, but tackles are not so deep. A lot of the guys that are tackles in college, I think, are going to wind up as guards, either from technique limitations, size limitations, arm length limitations. I think they're going to wind up as guards. So that's kind of why I would like to go offensive line first. And that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the odds are that's what's going to happen. Not for certain, but I feel like if people were betting on this, and I'm sure plenty of people are, just based on where the Bears are, who's on the board, and what you're seeing in the mocks, I feel like that's the most likely scenario.
And it's just a question of who they value. Do they feel like Skoronsky is a tackle? And, I know people will say, well, Rashawn Slater had short arms and he's a Pro Bowl level tackle. His arms weren't nearly as short as Peter Skoronsky. And to be honest with you, coming out of the draft, Rashawn Slater was a better prospect than Peter Skoronsky is. And that is not a knock on Peter Skoronsky. Peter Skoronsky is a very good offensive lineman, and I think he's going to be an all-pro guard.
But he's a local guy, my friends.
But he's a Packer fan.
Touche.
But Rashawn Slater, I think, was a better prospect coming out. But if you look, I think as far as offensive tackles, since 2000, I think there's only been one guy with arms as short as Skoronsky that has made a Pro Bowl since 2000, if I'm not mistaken.
Who would that be?
I don't remember. But there's been a couple of other guys that have had short arms as like that too, but they've all been guards or centers. Tackles, just not so much. And it's one of those things is if you keep drafting guys that are outliers, you wind up with a team of outliers. And so that's why I don't think you need guard at this point. I mean, if you could tell me, hey, we feel confident that Tevin Jenkins can play right tackle and be successful, I would go, hey, listen, then we are drafting Skoronsky, because if we're confident Tevin Jenkins can play tackle, we could try Skoronsky at tackle and then flip-flop those two and be good. But I would need to understand that. You've got Broderick Jones, who's really raw, but probably has the highest upside. There's Paris Johnson, who is probably the most polished. You've got Darnell Wright, who's the earth mover right tackle from Tennessee. So you've got different types of guys, but I think the talent level drops off pretty significantly at tackle in this draft after those guys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
But I'm with you. I think they need a cornerback. Unless they plan to sign the one situation I think is cornerback. If you don't get a cornerback in this draft, there are solid veteran cornerbacks available, and you still got a shit ton of money.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I think you should come out of this draft with a running back, though. I would probably want a wide receiver, but I'm torn where you go with, what round you go with it. Because I don't think wide receiver depth is that great in this draft. But you need an edge rusher. You need a defensive tackle. You need an offensive tackle. And if you don't get an offensive tackle in this draft, I have to consider this draft a failure.
It would be beyond shocking if they didn't get one.
And you've got a first rounder, 2 seconds, and and the very first pick in the third. So almost, I guess, with the Miami forfeiture, that sort of becomes the last pick of the second in every other year. So essentially a first and 3 seconds. If you don't come out of this draft with 4 starting players, again, I feel that's a disappointment.
When you have as many holes as you have, and you're looking at this draft to really help build your core going forward, if you don't have 4 starters coming out of this, then yes, there is a massive, massive problem here. I think that if you're coming away with enough linemen where you can feel good, or, maybe enough isn't the right word, but the right guys, no matter how many that might be, if you feel good about the protection around Justin Fields, you've built up the trenches, you have a running back you could go to, which I don't think will be that hard to acquire, then you say, you know what, from the offensive side of the ball, great. And then you add on, if you could get to the quarterback, great. If you could get those things, then I think you're able to step forward this year. I mean, because there's just so much that needs to be built up, but you need to build a foundation, a reliable foundation. And this is going to be the spot where everything is going to change going forward, for better or for worse. This is going to be how they build this core. This draft is essential. You have to hit more than you miss. You can't Ryan Pace this and be like, well, some was good, some was bad. You need more good than bad. It's not all going to be great, but you need more good than bad, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So you got 10 picks. I think you need 4 starters and 2 other guys that are contributor backup type guys that are useful to your team at least. I think 6 guys have to be useful to you. But you're right. This is a critical time because the dynamics of this division have absolutely changed. Absolutely. Today, Aaron Rodgers was officially traded from the Green Bay Packers to the New York Jets.
Yep. I mean, all the waiting and the speculation and blah, blah, blah. Years of this. Is Aaron Rodgers staying? Is Aaron Rodgers going? Blah, blah, blah. It's finally over. It's finally over. And a Green Bay Packer quarterback after 15 years is going to the Jets. Has that ever happened before?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember, right?
Oh, no, wait. There was that one quarterback that sent the picture of his Huang.
But we're going to have a new quarterback with the Green Bay Packers. The Vikings, there are rumblings that they may trade for Trey Lance.
I've heard that too. Because if you're going to go with Brock Purdy in San Francisco, then what are you doing with Trey Lance? You might as well get something for him, right?
Well, yeah, you're trying to recoup
what you lost.
What you lost for him. So if you trade him, if you're the Vikings, do you go the one last hurrah with Kirk Cousins, or do you trade Kirk Cousins?
Well, the question is this. If you're going to get Trey Lance, you're probably going to work with Trey Lance, right? Like you wouldn't sit him behind Kirk Cousins.
Probably not.
It's kind of what I'm thinking.
And the Lions look to be the cream of the crop of the division, but again, that's a quarterback that absolutely crumbles under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, the keys for the Lions are going to be, can they keep that offense going? Can that coordinator keep up? Are teams going to adjust or not? The other thing, too, that's really key for the Lions, they got a good line. If you can get around it and put pressure on Jared Goff, then things might be a little different. But, right now, there's a lot of things you look at the Lions, you're like, dang, there's some good stuff there. But,
they also had 4 players suspended.
Right. So things get a little complicated. I still think the Lions are going to be, if I'm a betting man right now, I think the Lions are going to be good, but there is no sure shot guarantee here because, listen, for the past 30 years in the division, outside of just a small handful, going in every year, all right, the Packers have Brett Favre / the Packers have Aaron Rodgers. They're the clear favorites. It's been that way my entire life, basically. It's just, now you don't have that. How good is Jordan Love? I don't know. I don't know how good Jordan Love is. If he's as good as Aaron Rodgers, I'm never watching football again. I don't think he's going to be as good as Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know if he's going to be trash either. He could be very solid, very good. What are the chances are he's Aaron Rodgers?
But, you look at this division, and typically a division, the team that you pick as your preseason favorite has a quarterback you believe in. You look at the AFC East, and you're like, okay, I think the Jets are now in that conversation because they've added Aaron Rodgers. The Bills are in that conversation because of Allen. The Dolphins are in that conversation because Tua's pretty decent, but he's got a hell of a team around him. The AFC North, you got to look at the Bengals because they've got the best quarterback in the division. AFC South is just absolute trash, and they don't have any quarterback. But probably you're going to think of that the Jags are going to win that because they have the best quarterback in the division. The AFC West, you're like, okay, the Chiefs have the best quarterback. They're probably going to win this division. So on and so forth. You keep going. I believe in this team. They have the best quarterback. In the NFC North, everyone's going, well, I think the Lions are going to win it. Oh, so you think the Lions have the best quarterback in the division? No, I don't. So that's where things get a little suspect. And they might win. They probably, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting the Lions have the best record in the division. But they don't have that quarterback that's the great equalizer when things start to go off the rails.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those situations where you say, okay, how good are the Lions going to be this year after last year? Is this whole thing under Dan Campbell for real? Is this whole scheme for real? They got some talent there. They do. So you ask yourself those questions. And I think with Minnesota's got some major defensive problems. And obviously they're going to try to fix that. But
There are also talks of they're going to trade their running back.
right, they could trade Dalvin Cook. And I mean, what if they kind of just step aside and do a quick retool year? I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I mean, the problem with the Bears is that they have so much they need to add to this team to win it, but football changes every year. And if you want to play technicality, they should have beaten the Lions at home last year. They probably should have won that game against the Packers at home last year. They were a fumble inbounds away from possibly beating the Vikings. And then the second game against the Vikings, they didn't even try. So, it's not like you were completely blown out in every game last year. Sure, the game in Detroit was a disaster. And yeah, the game in Green Bay wasn't good. But, you did hang tough against some of those teams. And, things do change. Things do change very, very quickly in the NFL. And the thing about the NFC is, you look at it as a whole. The Eagles are far and away the best team right now, right?
You have to feel so. Or maybe the 49ers.
I'd still put the Eagles over them with Jalen Hurts.
Probably.
I'd put them 1, 49ers 2, and then 3. I mean, Dallas?
Maybe Dallas. Maybe Seattle.
I'd probably put Dallas over Seattle right now.
Probably.
We can say what we say about Dak. If you're going to trust somebody to put up big season numbers consistently, who are you trusting, Dak or Geno Smith?
Dak.
Right. And I just think they have more weapons on that team. Now, coaching wise, I think Seattle has the edge. I'd take Pete Carroll over Mike McCarthy.
Did you know that Dak Prescott is now officially the longest tenured starting quarterback with his team in the NFL?
That's wild. That's wild. Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. Tom Brady retired. Wow. Drew Brees is gone. That's nuts.
Yeah, but looking at the NFC, I don't think the Giants are going to be that good. I think the Commanders are going to be terrible. Nobody from the NFC North seems like they're going to be contenders. Even if they win the division, I'm not looking at them as contenders. The NFC South is doo-doo. 49ers, I think, are going to be good. I think the Seahawks are going to be good, but I don't know if they're
If you pin them up against the Eagles in a playoff game, I think the Eagles are an easy bet.
Right. Agreed. I think probably Seattle's like that next tier. Like, probably it's the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. And then that next tier is probably the Lions, the Seahawks. And then after that,
I put the Giants maybe in there.
Giants could slip in there. I have to see how the draft looks first and how some things play out. But the Giants,
I like their coach a lot.
I do like their coach. I don't like their quarterback though.
No, I mean, I don't think Danny Dimes is going to win you a Super Bowl, but if you have a good enough team around him, you can do what you did last year, make the playoffs, and maybe win a playoff game.
Yeah, I think I have to see what their draft looks like before I would consider them in there. But not to be a big meatball, but I think if you solve that right tackle spot, I think there's there's a scenario where the Bears could be one of those teams definitely not in that upper echelon tier, but that next tier where, I mean, could they be better than the Seahawks? They beat the Seahawks last year. Are they probably better than?
You mean 2 years ago?
I'm sorry, it was preseason last year.
Right.
But could they be better than the Seahawks? I could see that. Could they be better than everybody in the South? Probably. Could they win this division? I don't
You,
know,
you
but
never say never.
you never say never
but
just because of the all of the upheaval in this division. And they're better. They're going to be better than the Commanders, I would expect. So
Yeah,
then that leaves the Giants. So I mean, could the Bears be in that second tier? There's a path where I could see that happening. Several things
sure.
have to go right, but I think there's a path. The defense just has to be okay enough, and you have to solve that right tackle spot. And I could be like, okay, then this offense I think could motor if you give Justin Fields some time to throw or a lane to consistently run, whew, like, or both. Like, this offense could be high powered.
Hey, if you could get the offensive production you got in the middle of last year with a better defense, you're going to win more than 3 games.
Or just be able to slow the run down.
Yeah.
Don't let them eat the clock up. Like, if you're going to do a shootout, win a shootout. Don't let them run the ball to win game, or to other team to win a game.
Right.
But yeah, this Thursday so we're recording this on Monday. We got less than 3 days left, and we're in the NFL draft. And I am just so beyond excited for all this.
Yep, me too. Been waiting a long time, and it's finally coming.
And it's at least something to look forward to, because baseball has sort of sucked this last couple days.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's disappointing losing 3 or 4 to the Dodgers when you had such a wonderful day on Friday. If you were to ask me, if we're just going to go into the Cubs series for a minute, I would have happily taken a split. Right?
I would have, yeah.
I really thought that they could have won that last game before Stroman kind of fell apart.
Stroman had a tough one at the end.
Freaking, I'm so glad we don't have to deal with Max Muncy again this year.
Really, I mean, the bullpen and David Ross's handling in the bullpen was a little tough to swallow.
Yeah, I don't think we could be giving Michael Fulmer any late inning relief appearances anytime soon.
No, when they got him, I thought that would be a good move.
Me too.
And it has not been so hot so far.
No, it hasn't. It really hasn't. I mean, Thursday night, loading the bases, walking Jason Hayward, and Outman just hitting a line shot grand slam. That was really frustrating when you couldn't put away your old friend Jason Hayward. You knew when he walked Jason Hayward, it was set up for disaster. And, indeed it was. But there's still some figuring out to do with that bullpen. There's going to be shuffling pieces. They called up Jeremiah Estrada, but you're going to have to reshuffle things and reevaluate. I mean, Brandon Hughes has been great on lefties in this small sample size. And, Mark Leiter Jr. has been really, really good overall. And he kind of had a cruddy outing on, I think it was Saturday. And it was cold and he throws a splitter. It's harder. I get it. I'm not as worried about that, but there's going to be some figuring out to do here. I mean, really, I think what fans and Cub fans are most frustrated of right now, and you can speak on this, how much longer do we have to deal with some of the 4A players taking up roster spots that barely even play?
That's the question. I agree with you, and I don't know what the point is. I think it's time to bring up Matt Mervis. I think there's plenty of at-bats for him. And I agree with that. Hey, he's a developing player. He needs as many at-bats as possible. I fully agree with that,
Me too.
but I think they should be at the major league level.
Well, it comes to a point where it's like, okay, how much longer in AAA do you need? You've been in AAA end of last year, and so far in a few weeks this year, he's done nothing but hit. He's already 25, so it's time to figure out what you have. And I think the other guy that really should be on the roster right now is Nelson Velasquez. Comes up, has an amazing day, hits a grand slam against the Mariners, immediately gets sent down. Like, bring him up too. Now, there's a lot of talk about Christopher Morel. He's crushing it right now. Strikeout rate's still a little high, so they might still be working on a few things there. If you want to work on a few things with him, don't take too long, but okay. But
the thing with Morel is, where do you play him if you bring him up?
Well, it would be hard to do it every day because of Patrick Wisdom.
Right. Patrick Wisdom right now is just murdering baseballs. So you can't take him out of the lineup. Morel's got to play every day. And you're right. There's the strikeout issues. That's got to. I'm not down on Morel by any stretch. I just think he needs to play every day and he needs the work. But
a lot of great signs so far.
Oh yeah. If Wisdom were to get injured, I would be fine. You've called him up.
Sure.
If you had a corner spot where somebody went down and they want to play him in the corner, okay, I can live with that. But as it stands now, is you're not going to play him over Suzuki. You're not going to play him over Hap. You're not going to play him over Wisdom.
Right.
Where's he going to go?
Yeah. Do not play him over Suzuki. He's looked great so far.
Yeah. So you can't, like, he has no room. But I think Mervis you bring up, and I think that's a no-brainer at this point.
If you're to ask me when they actually do it, I see midsummer. That's what I could be wrong. That's just my guess right now. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm saying that's what I think they might do.
That's maybe. I just think they need a shot in the arm. Maybe you sort of feel out how they bounce back after that Dodgers series. And look, the Dodgers are, for the last however many years, have been the National League.
They're a good team.
They've been the class of the National League for how many years? And
yeah,
we beat them pretty good in Los Angeles. They came here and gave us a little bit of a ass whooping. But things could have been very different if a couple of small things played out differently. So maybe you wait to see how they fare against the Padres and before you knee jerk. But I still think Mervis should be on this team.
Well, and I think the whole point of this is not just a knee-jerk reaction, because the Cubs are, they're 12-9, and the top 5 in their order has been, Nico's been awesome. Just absolutely awesome. Dansby Swanson has been good. Ian Happ has been good. Freaking Cody Bellinger has been awesome. Seiya Suzuki, since coming back, has looked good. The issue is when you have games where those top 5 aren't going to hit, and they're going to happen. Happens to everyone in baseball. Is if they're not hitting, then you can't really rely on your depth right now. And we ran into that issue in the final game against the Dodgers. Obviously, giving up the runs late wasn't good, but you still had moments in that game where you could come back offensively, and at-bats came down to Luis Torrens and Nick Madrigal. And I think that pretty much sums up my point, is what I'm trying to say here.
Torrens has been okay. Just there's no pop in that bat at all. None.
And Edwin Rios is the other one too. He never plays.
Yeah,
both of them.
I think Torrens and Rios may have less pop in their bat than Madrigal. Yeah. I'm looking. They both have a slugging percentage lower than Nick Madrigal.
I mean, I think the raw power, obviously, Edwin Rios has great raw power, but he has like one hit in 18 at bats. And he barely plays.
True.
It's like, if he's not going to play, then why take up a roster spot? I mean, I don't think Edwin Rios has a place on this team. I mean, I'd say if you're going to clear space, maybe just flip him somewhere where he can play, flip him to some team that can just use a third baseman DH for a bag of balls. Let him play either somewhere else, because if you're just going to sit him on the bench, that's a roster spot that's not being put to use.
Right. I mean, but the thing is there's not a lot of holes right now in this roster to make room for people.
No, there isn't.
I mean, Madrigal's hanging on by a thread, because you're Wisdom has been playing great. Your outfield's great. Middle infield has been great. Really, it's your first base DH combination that you can work with. But this Cubs team, the one thing I will say about this is I feel there's a lot of something you can't measure. And I don't know how to describe it. It's a good vibes, synergy. There's something about this team when you look at them and you watch them play. They've got this energy that you feel good about.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to gel together. They seem to mesh together. They seem to pick each other up. Obviously, we had the near perfect game by Drew Smiley, and the reaction from the team and his fellow starting pitchers when he came off the field. I think that does say a lot.
There was a great reaction by everybody except for Jan, who tackled him.
Jan was trying to go Brian Urlacher on his ass.
No perfect game for you. Yeah.
That was too bad, because I honestly thought that if that doesn't happen, I think he might have gotten it. Drew Smiley was just absolutely locked in that day.
He was dealing.
First pitch strike to literally everybody. I mean, he was commanding the ball and executing as good as you can. And it was perfect too, because you needed length from him to rest the bullpen, and that's exactly what he gave you.
Right. But the thing you are worried about with this Cubs team is something we didn't think we'd have to worry about. It's starting pitching. Wisniewski has not been the same guy that we saw the end of last year in spring training.
No, I think that's the biggest concern. Well, there's two concerns. It's him and Tyone's health, I think, are the two biggest concerns. And I mean, Wisniewski, the stuff is flat. He's not locating. I'm hoping that he can work through it. But what we saw last year and then in spring training, it's a completely different guy. I mean, I don't know if you saw the first inning of his start on Saturday, but he loaded the bases, nobody out, gave up a rocket for a double play, and then a long fly out to Cody Bellinger on a cold day. He could have easily given up 4 or 5 runs that inning. He's not missing bats. He's not fooling anybody.
No. And I don't know what's going on, but I'm long term, I'm not concerned, but there's something not right. I don't know if there's some sort of discomfort, if he's tipping pitches, if he's got blister issues, if there's some sort of kink in his mechanics. I can't tell you what's happening, but he's just
yeah.
Right.
I don't think it's tipping. I don't think it's tipping pitches, because the stuff just doesn't look crisp and it's not being located right. Like, those sliders are flat and they're up.
Yeah, I can't tell you what exactly is happening.
I think the most frustrating thing is how many times do we actually see him get ahead of batters 0-2 and then he lays the 0-2 pitch right down the middle the few times he does get ahead.
Right?
So, I mean, I'm hopeful that it's going to, that he'll fix everything, but you were hoping that you'd see some better results out of the gate. I mean, like I said, with the rest of the rotation, Stroman's been good overall outside of one, kind of bad inning against the Dodgers, a very good team. Justin Steele's been overall solid so far. Jameson Taillon, he finally has a good game against LA in LA, and now he's hurt, which is pretty unfortunate.
Right. But what the good news is, Kyle Hendricks is close to coming back.
Yeah, we'll see how good a news that really is, but does give you another arm.
Is another arm, and I don't know what he's going to look like, but
I don't either. But
the reports are he threw 3 innings of extended spring training, and the reports from Jed and Rossi are he looked good and felt good.
Well, you hope that he looks good and feels good when he gets on the mound, and it'll be kind of a test. It'll be like, okay, is he really just over the hump, or was he pitching injured in late 2021 and 2022?
I mean,
or maybe both. I don't know.
Here's the thing is all of his stuff didn't rely on velocity. It relied on pinpoint accuracy and movement. And if he gets that back, even if he loses a little velocity, that wasn't the driver of what he pitched, and I know you've been driving this bus for the Cubs to get guys that just throw absolute flamers.
Yep.
But if we get 80% of the old Kyle Hendricks back, I don't think that's a bad thing at this point. I don't think so either. Things a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially with, like you said, Taillon's injury, and I don't know how bad this is going to be. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's bad, but it's one of those things as a groin with a pitcher.
It's tricky.
And, he could come back in, they put him on 10-day?
15-day?
It was 15-day.
I believe so.
Misses a couple starts, comes back, could be fine, or could linger. It would be nice to have somebody come in with a veteran presence and add some stability here.
Sure, absolutely.
Because Steele's look great. Stroman, for the most part, has looked great. So it's come in here and find some stability when they need stability. And who knows how long it's going to be before Hendricks is here, but I'm hearing it's not going to be that incredibly long. So maybe
mid-late May.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I mean, overall, I'm still very, very high on the Cubs compared to where I was 2 months ago.
Well, I like the way they compete. They're competing out there. Like you said, there's a better vibe. I think the fact that the guys that you're paying to hit are hitting. So can we seriously talk about Nico Horner? How just awesome he is.
He's been fantastic.
Ian Happ from the left side looks really good. Dansby Swanson, he's hitting and he's getting on base. The approach is good. And I know some people might be bringing up the slugging, but he didn't really hit for power much in April last year either. But when you have an OBP over 400, it's like, okay, you can give a little leeway there.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the power. I mean, he's coming from a warm weather city. I think he's like lifelong Georgia product, and playing in Chicago in April, not fun. So I think he's going to be fine. But even if we have low power production for this year, the defense that guy adds, the leadership he adds, that the good quality at bats and the on base percentage make up for it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason for me to complain about Dansby Swanson right now.
I'm not concerned at all right now about him. Nico's been great. Dansby's been great.
Suzuki's been locked in.
Suzuki's been locked in. And Wisdom slugging percentage would be a decent OBS or good OPS for an average player.
Yeah.
His slugging is over 700.
There's one player we do have to really talk about, though, in the lineup.
Go for it.
Cody Bellinger.
Yep.
I did not expect him to look like this. I don't know if it's going to last, but I did not expect this production from him. Again, I don't know if it's going to last. I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, but so far, so good.
The thing is, we discussed it, that with him, it's as long as he plays good defense and provides a little pop in the lineup, we're okay. Anything else is gravy. And he's given us that defense, and he has been a clutch hitter, been a pretty darn good hitter. And I'm so far so good. And again, you know what? If he fizzles out, he fizzles out. He's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know that the defense is not going to fizzle out.
No.
He's as good of a center fielder as we've had in a long time.
Absolutely. He's been phenomenal. And it's funny because all the people that are, oh man, can't believe we gave up on Jason Hayward and he goes to the Dodgers and they're going to fix him and he's going to play great. Dude is batting 170 something.
Yeah, let's not play that game. There's no reason to.
Yeah, I'm just, I have no ill will towards Jason Hayward.
Neither do I. He's a great guy.
The people that were like, oh man, the Dodgers are going to fix him and he's going to look great. Just shut up.
Yeah, chill out.
Like, sure, he's got a little more pop in his bat, but that guy is back to bouncing liners to second base.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, overall, I think that this team at least seems to execute well on certain things that we've wanted them to. I mean, you look at some of the little things, like if there's a runner at third, they do a better job now of making contact to the right side. It's little stuff like that I think they're doing a good job with.
Absolutely. Scoring runs without the home run, they are doing a good job.
They are.
I think
with that said,
in previous years, they've relied so much on the home run.
Right.
And I think I know what you're going to say. And I'll go ahead and let you say it. But if you're going to say what I think you're going to say, I totally agree.
With that said, if you're going to contend over a year, you are going to want to flash a bit more power.
That's amen. They need to hit more home runs, but I appreciate that they're able to have one of the higher scoring offenses without a lot of home runs.
Right. And listen, Nico is not going to be slugging 20 home runs. You know that Ian Happ is probably going to be between 15 and 20. Seiya Suzuki has the capability of hitting 20. So you kind of look where you can get your biggest power production numbers. Your biggest power hitters right now, just based on their abilities: Cody Bellinger, Patrick Wisdom. I'd probably put Seiya Suzuki based on his career as a professional in there. You could add in Dansby Swanson just based on what he's done the past few years. I think Ian Happ, I think has opted for more contact on base versus power, which is fine. So you see how the season progresses. And, most of the games at Wrigley have been cold as hell.
You forgot Trey Mancini. I know he has not been hitting for power, but that guy, most of his seasons are between mid-20s and up to 35 home runs, and he competed in a home run derby.
Yeah, career-wise, yes. At this point of his career, I think he's more of a 15 to 18 home run guy, but you are right, based on the abilities, yes.
So I think that's the big difference one of the big differences between last year and this year is they still don't have that big bopper guy, that one guy who's just gonna, that judge who's gonna hit 40 home runs.
The MVP, Chris Bryant.
They don't have that one guy, but they've got a whole lineup of, for the most part, of guys that could hit a home run.
Sure.
It's guys with a little bit of pop. And so at any moment you could hit a home run. There's no except when, a certain former White Sox is in the roster. Can you not hit a home run?
Yeah. There's more chances of it being an inside the park home run than over the fence.
Right. But like Nico's got a little bit of power. Dansby's got a little power. Suzuki's got some power. Happ's got some power. Bellinger's got some power. Wisdom's got a lot of power. Mancini's got a little power. You've got a lineup of guys that can hit a home run, but it's not a high likelihood they're going to hit a home run.
Right.
I fully agree. This team needs to get a little more pop in that bat, but they are scoring runs without it.
They are. And like I said, most of the games they've played at Wrigley have not been home run friendly days.
No, it's been really shitty weather for the most part. And even on days where the weather's not been so bad, there's been no out breeze. There's been a slight in breeze.
Outside of Friday's game, or when they, went off, scored 13 runs.
Right. On the other side of town, things are not looking so hot.
Yeah. There's already kind of a, hey, we need to get this back on gear. Or we need to get it back on gear quick.
Yeah, I'm already seeing fans starting to turn on Pedro Grifol.
Yeah, me too. And frankly, I don't know how much of that is his fault. I don't know. I don't know what happens behind closed doors. And we can nitpick the in-game stuff all we want to, but when you have what you work with and you have two of your main drivers that are injured, having Yohan Moncada and Tim Anderson not be in this team, it's going to hurt the team. But, you also come to that point where you need some of the other guys to step up too, big time.
I mean, Luis Robert is not hitting the baseball like he should. Eloy is not hitting the baseball like he should. Benintendi is not hitting for power at all.
No, I mean, he's kind of a line drive, find the gaps in the grass type hitter, not really a power hitter at this point.
Jake Berger is hitting the baseball, but is he a long-term solution? Is he a guy that you're relying on for the whole season? Probably not.
He can hit power. I mean, that's where a lot of his value comes in.
Elvis Andrus has a lower slugging percentage than he does on base percentage, and his on base percentage isn't very good. You just got people aren't hitting. And the starting pitching, I mean, Lance Lynn has an almost 8 ERA. You've got Giolito, who has been pitching
Meh,
meh,
meh.
meh, and he's out on bereavement. You've got other than Cease, is anybody pitching well?
Well, not to where you would want them to. I mean, like Michael Kopech, he has flashes where he looks really good, and then he has flashes where he struggles giving up the long ball. It's like you don't really know what you're going to get from him.
And even Cease didn't have that great of a game the other day against Saturday, Friday against.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not like he's getting completely rocked. It's just that he's not going deep enough.
And you're trying to figure out that bullpen. Both teams on both sides of town have had struggles with that bullpen. And
they're hoping that they can get Liam Hendricks, who is cancer free, go Liam Hendricks,
yes,
and Garrett Crochet back as quick as possible. Now, Liam Hendricks, health comes first. So we don't know when he's going to be back, but he's cancer free. That's amazing. We love that for him. But with him, baseball comes second, health comes first, right?
Right, absolutely. But he's a guy, I guarantee you, based on the mentality he has, he's saying, all right, I'm cancer free. Get me on the field.
Absolutely.
Let me pitch a baseball. And I would be shocked if you don't see him before the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be back eventually. I just don't know when that is.
But I mean, Aaron Bummer has not been very good. And overall season, the numbers don't look great, but I think Reynaldo Lopez has been pitching pretty well as of late.
Well, he did blow that game on Friday.
I
don't know. His ERA is kind of up there.
His ERA is abysmal, but
he's the closer and he hasn't gotten the results. So
this as a whole, who are you relying on in that bullpen?
I mean, Jimmy Lambert's probably been their best guy, right?
Kendall Graveman has had moments.
Yeah, Kendall Graveman's been decent, yeah.
Other than that, hasn't been so good. I feel a little bit for Pedro Grifol. Is you dealing with the hand that you're dealt with, and guys aren't hitting like they're supposed to. You got some guys that are injured.
Mm-hmm.
The pitchers aren't pitching that great, both your starting rotation and your bullpen. And when you go to your bullpen and, your guys just don't come through, it's a little tough. It's a little bit tough of a situation, and I don't know what the solution for this team is.
Well, and I mean, I feel like part of the solution is getting some of your key guys healthy again. We all know Tim Anderson makes this team better, right?
Absolutely.
The way Yohan Moncada was hitting also makes this team better, right?
It's just, even with that, they're right now, their record is 7-15, and they're losing today. What's that saying you keep saying? You can't win it in April, but you can lose it.
Right. You don't want to dig yourself an insurmountable hole, but that does get to a saving grace. And you probably know where I'm going with this.
They're a terrible division.
Yeah, that division is a joke. Right now it is, at least. So that's going to keep you in it. You have to take advantage of that. If they were in any other division, it would almost be insurmountable to overcome. But being in the AL Central, if you get some guys back healthy and you go on a bit of a run, you can make a run at it, at least right now. I mean, this is assuming that the Twins or the Guardians don't catch fire, because you sure as hell know that the Tigers and the Royals aren't. Those teams are awful.
Yeah. I mean, if the White Sox and Rays were in the same division, they would be 12 games out of first right now.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
I mean, the Orioles are playing really freaking good baseball right now, and they're 4.5 games behind the Rays. Like the Orioles,
look at what the Rays are doing.
The Orioles,
the Rays just won their 20th game.
Yeah, the Rays are just.
Sorry, go ahead.
Are just super good. The Orioles would be in first place in almost every division in baseball. And they're like 5 games out of first in their division.
That's cruel.
That's the life of the Orioles.
For a team that's gone through so much crap. Yeah.
Like the Rays are just one of those teams that no matter, they don't pay anybody, they just keep producing winning teams. And then you've got the Yankees and the Red Sox who can outspend everybody. And the Orioles are just like, we play in Baltimore.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Man, 20 wins for the Rays. We're not even in May.
Yeah. But the AL Central is doo-doo sandwiches, because the Royals might be the worst team in baseball.
No, that's the A's, but the second worst.
Well, all right. The Royals are the worst team in baseball that's not trying to be the worst team in baseball.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, you do know that the A's run differential hit -100 the other day, right?
But that team was just built to be bad. Like that's a bad team.
Yes, it was.
They're putting a bad team out there to move to Vegas. They're
right.
They're the real life, Cleveland Indians
in Major League.
That's literally what's happening.
Without the going on a run and winning part.
Yeah. Like that team is bad. And the thing is the Royals are just as bad, except they're not trying to be bad. They're just a bad team.
Yeah, that franchise is awful right now.
Yeah, but only one team has a winning record in the White Sox division, and it's barely a winning record.
Right, exactly. So this is there for you to take. So you got to get serious and start getting it together.
But one question I have: what the hell have the Pirates been eating? How are they suddenly good?
I ask that every day. Their pitching is all of a sudden like amazing, and they're hitting the crap out of the baseball.
This is gonna fizzle, right?
I mean, logic would say yes, but I don't think they're going to maintain this type of winning. I do think, though, it is a sign that they're no longer like you could circle them on the schedule and that's an easy 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4 series. They're going to be a pain in the ass to play. I'll tell you that much.
I mean, you always look at it as, can they afford to re-sign guys? But, for right now, they're a pain in the ass.
Right. That and the Brewers have been on fire too.
The Brewers have been on fire, but that's not that unexpected.
Nowhere near as unexpected as the Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals being bad and the Pirates being good were not expected.
But here's the thing: the Cardinals could be 20 games out at the All-Star break. And right, we all say the same thing, right?
They're not out of it until until they're out of it.
Exactly. Now, I don't think St. Louis is perfect. They got some pitching issues, but with that lineup they have and the way they just figure things out, don't count them out.
Yeah, they're far from out of it. I mean, their big boppers are not hitting home runs right now.
No, but I do have a feeling that will change.
Yeah, Arenado has 2 home runs. Contreras has 2 home runs. Goldschmidt has 2 home runs. That those guys are going to turn it around.
And Contreras, we know what Contreras is. He'll have a month where he is just hitting the living daylights out of everything. And then there's going to be the month where he has like 3 hits.
Yeah, I mean that's Contreras for you.
Right.
Yeah, Paul Goldschmidt has 2 home runs, but his OPS is 830. Wilson Contreras has 2 home runs. His OPS is 824.
He's hitting a lot of doubles.
Old Willie.
Yep.
There any other baseball stuff you want to talk about?
No. We'll see how this week goes for both teams. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking so good against the Toronto for the White Sox. But the Cubs.
But hey, the Rays are due to go on a slump, right? Right.
Well, it won't be this week. Except playing the White Sox. But yeah, this is a tough stretch for the White Sox. Is a series against Tampa, a series against Toronto, and a series against Tampa. Not fun. But the Cubs have Padres, who are a good team.
Mm-hmm.
And then Miami. I'm hoping to see a little bit of a bounce back record wise from the Cubs. They took some lumps from the Dodgers, but again, that's the Dodgers. They got that Dodger magic.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
But I don't think we have anything Bulls or Blackhawks to talk about at this point.
Nah. I'm just watching the NHL playoffs right now.
Which game are you watching?
Devils Rangers. Devils lead 2-1 with 2 minutes left.
Nice.
So if the Devils win this one, they tie the series. And boy, would I love to see another Devils Rangers series go the distance.
I'm actively rooting for the Rangers to make it to the conference finals, so the Blackhawks get another first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't care. Maybe I root for the Maple Leafs.
Nah.
Because they always fall apart. Maybe I root for the Kraken. So Eddie O could be announcing a winner.
I don't really have any team that I'm like, oh, I can't stand it if this team doesn't win.
I mean, the closest thing I have to it are playing each other, the Wild and the Stars.
Yeah, I mean that probably is the closest thing, but it's not like, the Red Wings or the Blues or the Canucks.
Like I maybe I root for the Oilers over the Kings.
Yeah, they had that great comeback last night.
Yeah, to tie that up. Yeah, I don't really. It's more of a. This has been fun. More so than stressful, because I'm not really. I don't have a team I hate.
Right.
Like Pittsburgh is not in. The Red Wings aren't in.
St. Louis, Nashville.
St. Louis, Nashville, Philadelphia. So I can live with whatever happens here.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Denver New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.